All right, I started thinking about this video a couple months ago, and it's something that I want to start doing every year. I'm going to call it a year of creative projects. So I've been taking a lot of notes and going through my archives, also going through my Photos app a lot, and trying to figure out exactly what I was doing every single month. I haven't really done this sort of recap or revisit of what I've done in a year ever. So this is a fun little exercise, and it's something that ended up in a lot of revelations. A lot of interesting things came out of this. So I want to share those with you today. And it's actually an exercise I'd highly recommend everybody doing. So real quickly before we jump in, my name is Gaku. If you don't know who I am a content creator, photographer, videographer. I create a lot of social assets for clients, for brands, but I also do a lot of stuff for my own social brands on Instagram and this YouTube channel. I realized, especially through this process, that I do a lot of different things. And it's interesting to look back and see what were client projects, what were personal projects, what were different things, different achievements, different milestones, different goals that I met, and a lot of mistakes that I made throughout the whole year. So I think the way I'm gonna break this down is I'll go through quarters instead of months, because I feel like months is gonna be too long, and I'll go quarter by quarter first with all of the client and creative projects that I did, and then later on, I'll go ahead and talk about the analytics and the productivity of my own personal output for this YouTube channel and my Instagram and TikTok channels, Instagram and TikTok profiles. Basically, I'm gonna go over everything that I created this year and some general thoughts that I had after this process. So first with the client work. So starting out with quarter one, one of my main goals this year was to do a lot more client work. And when I say client work, I mean, I had these great visions of working with big brands to create very cool assets, mostly for social, and do a lot more video work, as well as do a lot of more photo work. And I kind of manifested that really strongly in quarter one. So in January, I started out with a project for Ape. This was a whole production that I oversaw and also did the stills and edit for the video. I basically organized and produced their spring, summer lookbook video and photos. That was a really taxing project because there were so many looks. I think we went through like 9 or 10 looks with 3 models in 3 different locations, all in a single day. I had to go and do the location scout, pre-production. The final result was a super cool video and a lot of cool stills, but the whole process for that campaign was a tough campaign. It was definitely made possible because Peace shot video and focused primarily on the video assets of shooting. And then I went ahead and shot the photos, the stills. We had a lot of assistance for lighting. I brought on some people to help production. It was a lot of fun. And the end result, I think, was really cool. Later in the month, I was actually in front of the lens for a North Face campaign where Peace and I were models for the North America mountain jacket campaign that came out. It was mostly just stills. And we shot that again in Tokyo. Between that, I was doing a couple sponsored videos for YouTube, some sponsored content for Adobe on my Instagram channels. And then moving into February, I did a Bape campaign for their new Crosta shoes. This was pretty similar to the Ape campaign, but this time we only had 2 models. Again, it was at night. Peace shot the video and I edited it. And I also focused on shooting the still images for this campaign. This was a bit easier because it was all shot at night and the actual production time was much shorter. So we were able to focus on really kind of nailing in that main look. And there are only 2 looks for this campaign. I realized that the less looks you have, the more time that you can really focus on your camera movement, your angles. When there are more looks, the production gets a lot more complicated and it's tough. So less looks is always a lot better for the creative. Moving along, I worked on a global campaign last fall, actually, for Solomon. I went on their Super Bowl commercial shoot and shot a bunch of BTS and also shot a lot of social assets that were finally released on Super Bowl weekend, which I think was like the first weekend of February. I also shot and edited a short North Face campaign for my own personal channel that was posted in collaboration with North Face later in the month. My car broke down on that shoot, I forgot. So now I'm having the unique experience of getting towed in my own car behind a very large JAF truck. Could have been worse, could have been worse. And then wrapping up the quarter in March, I did another Bape campaign, this time for the Bape Camosta. This was with Enzo, and we shot 3 different looks in 3 different locations across Tokyo. This is all a single day production. It seemed like this campaign is interesting. I shot the video, edited the video, and also shot the stills for this, and shot this in a very small crew. It's one of the rare campaigns where I was able to do both the video and photos just because there was 1 model and there's only 3 looks. So I feel like these shoots where it's just 1 model and a limited number of looks, I can handle doing both the photos and video videos. Bigger shoots, it just becomes impossible. I also shot a small campaign for socials for Lululemon, and that pretty much wrapped up all the major client projects that I'd planned for the first 3 months. Following that, Carl and Sam came to Japan and we just chilled out. I did a little cross-country drive across Nagano, a lot of refreshing and creative resetting. Before we continue on the next projects, if you're looking for the perfect cloud-based project management system, the best tool to help consolidate all of your work as a freelance creator, look no further than the sponsor of today's video, Clickup. As a freelance creator, juggling client deadlines, edits, and brainstorming for personal projects can get overwhelming. I started using Clickup recently to manage it all, and it's been a game changer. From planning shoots and tracking revisions to mapping out video timelines, Clickup keeps everything organized in one place. It's honestly been a huge help in staying organized, especially when I've got so many things happening at once. For example, during one of my recent campaigns, I used Clickup to map out the entire project from the initial pitch to final edits, and having everything in one place made the whole process smoother. What I really enjoy about Clickup is that it's flexible. I can use it to manage big collaborations, but it's just as handy for smaller things like planning out my content calendar or even tracking analytics for videos like this one. It's easy to customize and works with tools I already use, which means I spend less time switching between apps and more time actually creating. If you're ready to take your workflow to the next level, head to the link in my description and get started for free. A special offer, use my code GAKULANG to get 20% off your first year on the unlimited or business plans. It's been a fantastic addition to my workflow, and I know it'll be just as helpful for you. Moving into Q2, April, I flew back home to kind of just reset for a week, and then I did a campaign for Fashion Snap / Adidas, which was another social video. I did a few sponsored posts on Instagram, a couple with Insta360, and I also signed a contract with Kiehl's, and I started working with Kiehl's throughout the rest of the year, basically creating monthly short social media posts for their creator campaign, their creator-led, basically a program where they tapped in with a bunch of creatives and they produced UGC content, user-generated content for their socials. So after this point, I worked on a Kiehl's project every month after that. In April, I also hit 100K on YouTube, which was a huge milestone for me personally. It was just a pretty packed month now that I look at it, geez. Tatsuki also came to Japan, so peace. Tatsuki and I did a bunch of organic content as well in April. And then in May, I flew to Thailand with Peace to work on a small campaign for Apple. It was a TikTok-centric campaign on the new iPad and Apple Pencil Pro. This is the second time I'd worked with Apple. I'd worked with them previously on the iPhone 15 Pro launch. It was a lot of learning, a huge production, great experience, and it was actually the first of 2 times that I'd be flying to Southeast Asia for client work. The rest of Q2, I also worked on a Joe Malone social campaign, and besides that, I kind of started shifting from client-centric work back towards my own social organic work. I think it's at this point where I started to burn out from doing all these client projects. I wanted to shift to doing more organic stuff. So that's where I sort of shifted back to my own organic content. And I also flew back to the States for a little bit. That wraps up Q2. In Q3, I flew back from the States to Japan, and at the end of July, I flew to Milan to work with Ferrari on a bunch of social assets. I was on set for their production of the new commercial for their new F80, and this is a really interesting experience. It was interesting because I haven't really shot much car stuff, so being on set with Ferrari, working on their social assets, figuring out the lens selections, the different distortion rules that they had to showcase their car in the most pleasing light was a new experience. And it was also my first time in Italy, so I had a lot of great food and I met a lot of very amazing people. In August, almost a week after I got back from Milan, I was back on the plane and I flew to Malaysia to work on a campaign with AirAsia. AirAsia is an airline based out of Kuala Lumpur, so I flew there and worked with a very close friend, Taku, as he is the creative director of AirAsia, and I worked on a campaign for them, both, again, photos and videos. It was a very, very grueling full-day shoot, full production, and that campaign should come out in January of 2025. I'll also have a full BTS episode called Frame of Mind, where Tsubasa came and shot all the BTS for that campaign of how I shot the video and photos. And I'm very excited to edit that after this and post that in January upon release of that campaign. So stay tuned for that. Moving along in August, I did a couple other small social sponsored posts. And then in September, I edited a huge campaign for Lululemon. And this was a big release in Asia, all across Korea, Japan, Southeast Asia. And it was a really fun edit. I did a whole breakdown of this previously, so check out that video. I also snapped a few photos of Peace and Tamaki for the DJI release of the Mic Mini. Check those out. That wrapped up Q3, and at this point, I think I was super burned out from client work, traveling, and I really wanted to spend a lot more time on my own social work. I'm very lucky and very grateful to have a lot of opportunities to fly for client work. But one thing that you'll realize as you do a lot of client work overseas is that A, it's really taxing on your body, and it's not just the week of shooting or the few days of shooting. You have to do a lot of prep. Once you're there, you do a lot of production, and then there's a lot of post-production for each project. So even if you're there for just a week, basically each project takes multiple weeks of just planning, the actual editing, and then mentally it takes a lot of energy both creatively and physically to do these projects. So I realized that I needed to do a better job of balancing how many projects I take on and how many overseas projects that I take on in a month or in a year. In Q4, in hindsight, I thought I was taking a bit slower approach, but actually continued to do a lot of projects. I produced, shot, and edited a series of videos for Kiehl's, which will come out again in January of 2025. And on top of that, I did a bunch of other sponsored posts, but the main campaign that I did was we filmed and edited a series of videos that I posted in conjunction with Lenovo. And that was a really cool global campaign. I worked with a lot of amazing creators, and it was a really fun experience. And the following week, after we did all the production for that, I worked with New Balance and Fashion Snap to create a series of short videos that lived on their social pages promoting their new shoes, their new clothing. That was kind of the last major client project that I did this year. That brings us to December, where currently I am on a personal challenge of trying to post at least one reel a day. And so we've kind of come back from doing all these client projects and shifted back towards social first content for my own channels. Looking back at this year, I'm very grateful and very fortunate that I was able to be a part of so many amazing productions and client projects, people who trusted me to help bring their vision to life. I think I realized that I love doing both photos and videos. There's not one particular one that I really lean more towards. I think I'm better at making social first videos than I am as a photographer, but they're both disciplines that I really enjoy doing. And they're both things that if you want to be doing client work, you really have to be doing it very consistently, and you have to be putting yourself out there. Most of the client work I got this year were referrals from past work, and it was people seeing the work that I was producing in real time and then reaching out and saying, hey, I just saw your campaign with Bape, and would you be interested in shooting this upcoming product that we have coming out? The traditional client route is completely different than the social route. So it's very interesting, but it's also kind of difficult to balance both creating social first content and then trying to be I wouldn't call myself a DP or a director, but kind of just a videographer or a creator working on client first projects that are to be showcased on clients' Instagrams or clients' TikToks or clients' YouTubes. The requirements, the attention to detail, and just the oversight. How many people are a part of the revision process, the review process, making sure that everything aligns with the brand values, the brand goals. Shirts are nice and tidy, clothing is properly showcased. There's so many different variables that go into brand-owned content versus personal content. And so it's just a very interesting balance. I think moving forward, I probably could only handle maybe one or perhaps 2 big projects a month, even if that. I think maybe even 1 project a month might be my personal kind of max. I wouldn't say effort, more mental capacity that I can showcase or put forward towards a single project. So now that we've covered all of the creative and client projects that I've done this year, I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about my own personal growth and also my social growth that I've seen throughout the year. So I did a bit of analytics, AKA I counted everything that I produced this year for both my Instagram and my YouTube, and I came to a couple interesting conclusions. First, let's talk about my YouTube. And so this year I saw a considerable growth in my YouTube. At the beginning of the year, I sat at 78,000 subscribers, and I posted a grand total, including this video, of 24 videos over 12 months. And so basically 2 videos per month. I ended the year with 143,000 subscribers as of today, December 17th. I grew 64,000 subscribers this year, which is almost double what I started at the beginning of 2024. Now, looking back at my output, it was interesting to see that in the first quarter, so the first 3 months, January, February, March, I posted 7 videos and I grew 16,000 subscribers. In the next 3 months, I also posted 7 videos and I grew 14,000 subscribers. Between July, August, and September, I only posted 2 videos, but again, I grew 14,000 subscribers. And in the past 3 months, I've posted 6 videos and I've grown 20,000 subscribers. My goal this year was to post a lot more YouTube, and I think I accomplished that by posting 24 videos over the course of the year. I think next year, one of my goals is probably to try and increase output just a little bit ideally 3 videos per month. Trying to maybe tone down the amount of production and mix a little bit more lifestyle and casual content into the stuff that I post. Maybe talk about my thoughts a little bit more, kind of like this video. And it's interesting to see how consistent the growth was over the course of the year. I think some keys of note, especially for myself and anybody who's creating YouTube content, the content that I created months ago still does pretty well in terms of views, just because a lot of the content I created was evergreen. So I did a lot of stuff that wasn't necessarily any sort of like time-based or new gear. I did a couple of new gear videos, but a lot of videos were conceptual. They were techniques, tutorials, and there's stuff that you could watch next year, hypothetically, the year after that, stuff that viewers from any time period can kind of come back and look at. And that evergreen content is definitely the content that I saw did well throughout the year. From last year, some videos continued to do well. And that's the kind of videos I want to continually focus on and continue to create, rather than maybe hopping on kind of a short trend or some sort of new technical aspect that only is relevant to, for instance, 2025 or like a short period of time. That evergreen content just continually helped grow my channel, and it's something that I want to focus on moving into next year. Next up is Instagram, TikTok. Instagram is my main platform, and it was really interesting to crunch the numbers and look at my growth over the course of the year. So let's talk about Reels, because I posted a grand total of 50 feed posts throughout the year, and they didn't correlate at all to my overall growth. So let's really focus in on Reels, the short form videos that I posted on Instagram and TikTok. At the beginning of this year, January 1st, I was at 631,000 followers on Instagram. And now at the end of the year, I am currently at 843,000 Instagram followers, which is an increase of 212,000 followers. That's a pretty substantial growth, but I think it's more interesting to see the correlation between the amount of times that I posted short form videos to the growth that I saw in that quarter. So in quarter one, I only created 17 Reels. In January, I posted 6 times. In February, I posted 5 times. And in March, I posted 6 times. In quarter one, I only grew 4,000 followers, from 631 to 635,000, which is pretty incredible if you look at the whole growth of the year. This is of course a period where I was doing a lot of client work, a lot of production work, and I spent a lot of time just focused on that. So I had less time to create my own personal content. And I think to be honest, it was pretty half-assed, the stuff that I was putting out. I wasn't super excited about it. Some of it was sponsored. I think your audience can definitely tell when you're not excited, you're not genuine about the stuff you're putting out. They really respond with how they engage and interact with the stuff that you put out. In quarter two, I decided to make a very conscious decision to put a lot more effort and time into the organic content, the stuff that I was most passionate about, different tutorials, different techniques, different things that I was finding out, figuring out, editing styles, gear, and I wanted to make a lot more short form videos on these topics that I was super interested in. In April, I posted 12 Reels. May, I posted 16 Reels. And then in June, I posted 26 Reels, so almost one a day. In quarter two, I posted 54 Reels total, and I saw a sudden increase in growth. I went from 635,000 to 711,000, basically an increase of 76,000 followers in 3 months. Now, this was a huge jump from only increasing 4,000 followers in the previous 3 months. And I attribute that heavily to the amount of output I was able to produce compared to the previous 3 months. In quarter three, I tried to push on, and I ended up producing 44 Reels in those 3 months, 8 in July, 17 in August, and 19 in September. And I grew not as substantially as quarter two, but in quarter three, I grew 58,000 followers. And that brings us to quarter four. Quarter four, I've had a lot less client work, so I've had a lot more time and energy to focus in on creating, again, fun content, stuff that I've been working on. And I have produced so far 15 Reels in October, 20 Reels in November, and this month I am trying to post at least once a day. So I'm currently at 17 for 17 days, and I'll try to be at 31. So hopefully by the end of the month, I'll be at 66 Reel posts over the past 3 months. In terms of growth, I've grown from 769,000 to 843,000 followers on Instagram specifically, and that's an increase of 74,000 over 3 months. If you look at the trajectory, I should beat the growth that I saw in quarter two of 76,000. I'm currently at 74,000. If I continue posting for the next 2 weeks, then I should grow more than 2,000 followers, just looking at the exponential charts. And that brings me to my grand total of 181 Reels created this year over 365 days. So more than one every other day. It's almost odd how crystal clear the correlation is in terms of my personal social profile of how much I output or how many reels I create to how much I grow on my channel. And it just goes to show that reels or short form video is king currently, and looks like it will continue to be so. Now I've made a whole video on quality through quantity. I preach this all the time. The more that you work at something, the more that you produce, the better that you get at it. And I think one of the byproducts of really forcing myself to create more reels, more short form video is that the overall just quality of each video has gone up exponentially. And so the more that I make, the better that they become. And also I noticed that the more that I enjoy the subject matter that I create, the better that they perform on, when I say perform, the amount of views, the amount of likes, the amount of comments that they perform on Instagram and TikTok, which is pretty interesting. None of these numbers are to show off any sort of like outstanding statistics. It's just a personal anecdote and analysis of my own social profiles. And it's just interesting to see these sort of correlations and the general themes of basically quality and consistency leading to growth in specifically Instagram and YouTube at large as well, because 2 videos a month is pretty consistent. I'd like to be more consistent. And just being consistent this year has led to a really substantial growth in my audience. Now, all that to say that this year, taking a look at the analytics and just my own personal thoughts and feelings of how I was doing throughout the year, it's definitely the more that you give, the more that you get. The more effort you put in, the more engaged that you are with what you create and kind of the fun that you have with it. That 100% correlates and translates to how a person perceives the content that you post, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram. The more excited that I've been to share a feeling or experience or a concept, tutorial, transition with you, the audience, on either Instagram or YouTube, the more that I've felt people really resonate with what I'm talking about. And I think that comes basically from within. There's something intangible about excitement that just translates naturally into how you talk about something, how the pacing and overall flow of a video or how a photo comes out. It just comes out in the art that you create. And the biggest thing that I've learned is the more that I'm enjoying the process of what I'm doing, whether that's a video that I'm doing or when I'm on set with a client, the more that I enjoy being there and actually physically producing or working on a project, the better that that final product comes out every single time. That was probably the biggest takeaway this year from all the creative projects that I was fortunate enough to be a part of. So yeah, looking back, it was a very fun year, very productive year. I got a lot of stuff done. And next year, I think I'm really gonna focus in on taking perhaps maybe a little bit less client work, focusing in on the quality of the client work that I produce, and really focusing on growing both this YouTube channel and my personal socials on Instagram and TikTok by producing, again, more short form content that, to be honest, I enjoy creating a lot. I love sharing short tidbits, short stories, different pieces of gear that I found really useful. And I found that a lot of people don't like to talk about short form content in a very favorable light, but I personally really enjoy sharing short tidbits of information, different gear that I found, just sharing different ideas that I have in a quick format that I can shoot, edit, and share with my audience in a very streamlined format. It's one of my favorite things. So yeah, if you've stuck with me to the very end, I really appreciate you, and you'll be seeing a lot more of me in 2025. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.